She's already set her stall out, Kamala Harris, calling Donald Trump a convicted felon. The so-called unity politics didn't last very long, did it? But it's not yet a fait accompli. Mark, it's not yet a done deal. Certain big names have yet to come out and back Kamala Harris. Brings up to speed.
Yeah, I mean, certainly she's had a lot of endorsements from senior Democrats and not so senior Democrats, running at about 500 or so last count. So a lot of people have come forward. It's for those that would like to see other candidates come forward for that Democratic National Congress when that takes place next month. The difficulty, I think, with it is going to be that it just leaves such a short period of time for anyone to credibly put forward a campaign that's going to be credible taking on Donald Trump. They'd have to raise the finance because they wouldn't be able, under electoral rules, to raid the finance funds of the Biden campaign. They would have to get a staff in place. So it's a really tough ask. The thing that obviously for Kamala Harris, going forward is concerned is that she does have that apparatus. She can, because there is a joint campaign committee between her and Joe Biden, use the funds that have been raised for the Biden-Harris campaign going forward. And it would be a much more relatively simple slot in for her to just take over from Joe Biden and to run that campaign with whoever she decides to pick as her running mate. But let's see, we've got the Democratic National Convention Rules Committee who are going to be meeting this coming Wednesday. They will then decide on what the way forward for the convention is, and they promise that they are going to make that fully transparent, Martin. It will be live streamed so people can see exactly what their decision-making process is.
And Mark, it was believed to be Barack Obama, the final convincing factor that made Joe Biden finally see sense over the weekend. And interestingly, tellingly perhaps, Mark White, Barack Obama hasn't yet come out and officially backed Kamala Harris. He's the kingmaker, he's the godmaker in the Democrat Party still, all these years later. Is there any significance, do you think, Mark in his silence so far on this, or is this just procedure being followed?
Well, he's someone that when he was in office was known for taking his time over important decisions. So it is possible that it is just something that he is waiting for a period of time before coming forward and endorsing Kamala Harris on. Or there might be something else afoot. We just don't know. The whole issue surrounding Joe Biden has been the most extraordinary drama of late that nothing would really surprise me. And I think there is a great deal of anger as well within the Democratic base. What they, to put it bluntly, see as a cover-up by the higher-ups in the Democratic Party and the administration, a cover-up of Joe Biden's sort of decline in health and his cognitive decline as well, that many within the base say they weren't made fully aware of. But of course, in that debate against Donald Trump, it was laid bare. It was just agonising to watch, and there was no way back for those that have been accused of being part of this cover-up. You cannot say that that was anything other than an admitted disaster for Joe Biden, and it did show some serious issues surrounding his health and cognitive abilities.
And the other people on the ticket, Gavin Newsom, the governor of California, he said he's unlikely to stand against Kamala Harris. Likewise, Gretchen Whitmer, the governor of Michigan, said they won't challenge. They were the other big names on the ticket. And then, of course, the conspiracy theorists go into overdrive. Why hasn't Barack Obama announced? Is it because his the former First Lady, Michelle Obama, could be a bombshell surprise on the ticket, Mark? Or is that kind of psychodrama not likely?
Well, certainly so. sources in the States that are better connected than me are suggesting that is not the issue, that she is not intending to put her name forward at all. So, you know, things can change. But at the moment, there is no belief that Michelle Obama is intending to run for office. You were mentioning those names. Another one is Josh Shapiro, of course, the governor in Pennsylvania, who acquitted himself very well indeed during the tumult over the assassination attempt on Donald Trump. Of course, it was his state, and he was straight out of the traps, condemning that, offering his assistance and support to the former president. Well, he has also endorsed Kamala Harris, and he has been looked at as, we're told, a potential vice president for Kamala Harris should she go forward. Of course, he is in a swing state, so she could do worse than go for him. Another name being mentioned is Mark Kelly, the former war hero and NASA astronaut. Again, he's in a swing state. He's a senator in Nevada. So again, that might be a possible VP pick for Kamala Harris should she go forward as the presidential nominee for the Democrats. Really interesting, really looking forward to seeing these remarks, I think, from Kamala Harris this afternoon at 4:30 our time, when she's on the south lawn of the White House at a sporting event. But she is going to use that opportunity to make her remarks about what has happened over the weekend and her move forward here.
Well, Mark White, a cracking start to the show. Thank you very much. And what a ride it's going to be all the way now until November the 5th. How fitting. Thank you very much, Mark White. And I'm joined now by David Dunn, who's a professor of international politics at the University of Birmingham. Welcome to the show, Professor Dunn. Since we were speaking last week, I think we called this right. I think you said it would be unlikely that Joe Biden would survive the weekend. Reality bites. In the end, he simply ran out of road. The big question now, Kamala Harris looking like the most likely shoe-in as the candidate for the Democrat Party. Is she up to the job?
Well, there's been one of the reasons why Biden hung on so long was that there was a great deal of skepticism, even within the Democratic Party, as to whether she is the best person to replace Biden. And as you say, that we've had a lot of the big names in the Democratic Party haven't yet endorsed her. You mentioned Obama. Nancy Pelosi, who was behind the scenes getting rid of Biden, has yet to endorse Kamala Harris. And indeed, the leaders of the Democrats in the House and the Senate haven't done so either. So it's not a done deal yet, even though the momentum does seem to be with her. But as you say, the compacted process means that they may well be forced to accept her and take the risks that go with that. She is not someone who polls very high. She hasn't got a great likability rating in opinion polls, nor has she ever done so. But I imagine what their strategy is that in the future, going forward, the next 4 months, that she can use the momentum of being a new candidate to actually improve her status and go on and beat Trump in November. But it's a high stakes process to follow. It's a difficult strategy, but then their alternative of sticking with Joe Biden was problematic because he was going down in the polls, not just in the swing states, but actually in other states as well that the Democrats had hoped to win easily. So what you have is a switch from one risky strategy to another in potentially endorsing Kamala Harris.
It's interesting. You could already see the lines of attack. Donald Trump has wasted no time in putting the boot into Kamala Harris. Looks like the unity politics in America lasted precisely 1 week, Professor Dunn. And she's already putting herself forward as a former California Attorney General. Good v. bad. She's made statements earlier on today. I'm expecting we'll see much more of this in over an hour's time. Kamala Harris stands up to fraudsters and criminals. Donald Trump is a convicted felon. She's also going to be attacking Donald Trump's age. Don't you think that's a bit rich? Seems like she turned a blind eye to Joe Biden's obviously decrepit age for all these past months.
Well, that's politics for you, isn't it? I mean, you go with what you can get at, and she's 59, and age was a concern across the piece. It wasn't just that Joe Biden's age was an issue. 75% of the American population, when polled, said that they liked neither of these candidates. They regarded them as too old and too much of a representation of the past. So what she's trying to do is to make that age difference an advantage for her, and to portray Trump as now the old guy, having Biden dropped out, and to point to his verbal gaffes that he makes on occasion too. So she's using that as a part of her strategy. She's also using the fact that she is, as say, a distinguished lawyer and a prosecutor. So it's prosecutor versus felon is the attack line, and it's her looking for advantage wherever she can.
Yeah, they're going back down the route of white hats and black hats, good guys and bad guys. But can I talk to you a little bit about the media reaction, the supportive media in America? I think breathing a sigh of relief that Joe Biden has stepped down, calling it extraordinary, courageous, patriotic. This is what leadership looks like. But a fascinating point from the Wall Street Journal. They say the bet on Joe Biden was an epic miscalculation by the Democrats, who've misled their own voters by the millions. The Democrats will pay for the big Biden lie. And what they're saying here, what they're intimating, is that there was an institutional cover-up for Joe Biden's mental wherewithal, his physical health, whatever it was. I don't suppose they'll tell us in a hurry. Do you think there's something in that? And as a consequence, Professor Dunn, they simply haven't got enough time now. It's only a matter of months away until November. That's a blink of an eyelid in politics terms.
It's a blink of an eye in politics terms in Americans' elections that usually take 2 years. But the French managed to have an election in less than 3 weeks. It took 6 weeks of a campaign in the UK. There's no reason why it needed to be this long. Actually, given the amount of money and television attention, actually 4 months is quite a long time by any other standard for this campaign to run. The question of whether there was a cover-up or not, I mean, it's interesting. In Biden's statement, he didn't say because he was going because he was old or because he had any illness. What he said he was going was because he didn't think he could beat Donald Trump, and other candidates could. So it was an electoral strategy rather than an admission of anything else. And of course, other commentators are saying there's a difference between being good at campaigning and being good at governing. And they're saying that actually Biden is good at making the decisions, but he's not very good on the stump. And other people point to say, well, actually, Trump is very good at campaigning, but he wasn't very good at governing. He actually achieved very little in office. He didn't build that wall. He didn't make Mexico pay for it. He didn't achieve an awful lot other than a big tax cut. So actually, there's a comparison there between what you're looking at, whether it's about the campaigning process or the governing process, and actually they require different skill sets.
Do you think we can expect to see, I mean, I'm expecting from in about an hour's time this unity politics to go out the window. I'm expecting this to be visceral. I'm expecting it to be exciting. I'm expecting this to be back to what we saw before. I'm expecting Kamala Harris to attack Donald Trump and for this to get very, very personal. It's amazing how soon that attempted assassination has gone out the window.
Yeah, I mean, of course, Trump himself didn't stick to that script very much either. His speech at the National Convention in Milwaukee, which was scripted for him, he got bored about 10 minutes into it and went back to his stump speech from his rallies. So actually, he's not really sticking to that either. And if you look at some of the tweets that he's put out and truth socials that he's put out, he's fairly vicious in the way in which he has gone after both Biden and Harris, even suggesting that Biden's illness of COVID is a fake to keep him off the public stage. So I think what we can expect, as you say, is a fairly brutal campaign. American politics is deeply divided, deeply polarized, and actually it's very personal. And that personal stuff comes as much from Trump as it does from Harris.
I've got to say, David Dunn, I'm hugely looking forward to it. I don't think there'll be a dull moment if you comment on politics like we do. Wow, these are the salad days. David Dunn, Professor of International Politics at the University of Birmingham. Once again, always a huge pleasure to have you on the show.